Hi guys, welcome back to another video of my series about my blooming orchid. So this is what's flowering inside my indoor garden for the months of August and September. So here I have my beautiful summer bloomer orchids. And it was quite a nice month for me in terms of flowering and blooming. The highlight, the natural sunlight, and also the longer days helped these orchids to thrive. Am I really happy with all of the flowers that I have at the moment? Also, because I wasn't here in the beginning of August, I was away for the first week or 2 weeks of August, something like that. It was very busy and I missed a lot of blooms. So I had audacious orchids that I couldn't film, and I had some other blooms that actually faded before I couldn't even capture them for you. Nonetheless, I have beautiful orchids here, 18 different orchids for you. Let me know which one is your favorite in the comments down below. I would love to hear if you love a Cattleya, if you love a Phalaenopsis, or maybe something completely different. I will start with Oncidiums and Oncidium intergenerics because autumn is usually their season and autumn is just above us here where I live, so let's start. The first flower that I have here is my Miltoniopsis, Herr Alexandra. I love Miltoniopsis so much. They are definitely one of my favorite genera of orchids out there. These plants here, they have a very nice rosy perfume, so their fragrance is beautiful, gorgeous. It doesn't make me sick, and I have some sensitivity, so I know when there are some plants out there that I can't stand, but I love Miltoniopsis flowers. This one I bought in the beginning of the year in an orchid fair that I visit, and it's doing nice. Finally, I have a Miltoniopsis that it's actually pest-free. It's still in the same compost, the same mix that it came from the garden center. It pushed out 2 growths at this point now. This one rebloomed for me and pushed out 3 white flowers. It's not the most amazing Miltoniopsis display, but because it's the first time that it's reblooming for me in my care, under my growing room, using some natural light. I'm actually trying to see what works for my Miltoniopsis, and also I'm keeping it in my bathroom where I don't have as many plants as in my living room, so I can protect it a little bit more from pests and some other insects. I really want to have more Miltoniopsis in the future, but I need to make sure that they are surviving, they are enjoying my environment, so I can work with them and not lose my plants on the way. So now I have here another beauty, and I adore this plant. So this one is my Bratonia Shelob Tolkien. I know that it's not the most popular orchid out there because the flowers are a little bit different. They are not as, let's say, vibrant as some other orchids. What I have in here is a spider-shaped type of orchid, and it does look like a spider. The flower spike is super long, and the flowers are kind of large as well if I compare to some other orchids. I love the lip and how striking this purple lip is, but for me, it's the shape of the flower, this spidery shape. It's, I don't know, it's wild, but it's also elegant. This plant is a bit fragrant, but it's very mild. It's not something that will make you sick, and I don't know, it's quite okay. The only downside of this plant is that it's a massive kind of orchid. It needs its space, it needs some bright light to be able to bloom and rebloom. When I'm growing it under growing light, usually it doesn't appreciate as much. I think my growing light is not as strong as this orchid needs to grow. So I prefer to place it one of my window sills, but because it's a super large vase, it's quite difficult to find the right spot for it. It managed to bloom, push only one flower spike this year, but it suffered with pests in the past, as most of my orchids, and is doing a little bit better. I hope to have a better display next year, but even so, it's doing amazingly well. And I had a whole month of spider flowers inside my home, so I'm really happy. This plant usually blooms for like 6 weeks in a row, at least inside my home, which is really amazing for orchids. So now let's go to the next one. The next one is my white Aleceara. So this one is a hybrid, very common hybrid that I believe you can find in garden centers, websites, supermarkets, and even flower shops, at least here in the UK and in Europe. Alecearas are lovely Oncidium intergenerics that have this type of star-shaped flowers. I think it's one of the most glorious shape of orchids that we can find out there. I love the shape of these flowers, but I don't like the color of the flower as much. It is very much pale if we compare to some other orchids. So that for me is the downside of this orchid. However, the shape of the flowers, as I mentioned before, it's gorgeous and it is a very resilient type of orchid. It's great for indoor environments because it adapts quite well for intermediate temperature, and with house humidity, it's just dusty. It becomes a beast full of roots and you need to offer it water very often. I water it weekly, and when it was summer, dehydrated a little bit. But more than that, it's doing super well. It's very adaptable. You can place it in different places around your house, under growing light, near windowsill, and it should do well. So I have no issues growing this plant. It pushed out, I think, 4 different flower spikes this time. I couldn't film all of them in bloom. What happened with this plant is that it was pushing flower spikes when I went away, and when I came back, they were open, but some of them were not as vibrant as they could be. Others were fading already, so I couldn't enjoy all of the spikes at the same time. Nonetheless, I do have many flowers here, as you can see, and this plant is super large. It's growing and growing and growing, and I will have to repot it at some time soon, and it should have even more flower spikes in the next season or next year. This plant is capable of blooming multiple times a year, usually to push flower spikes during spring and autumn. Now let's go to a very sad display. This plant is an Oncidium intergeneric. It is a No ID, but it is one of my favorites in my collection. Why? Because the flowers, when the plant is healthy, I have to say here, the flowers are super large and vibrant. The problem is, this plant was too big, was having issues with its roots, got attacked by pests as well, and I had to report it. When I reported, it had a couple of issues because also I had a full infestation of thrips. So the plant got set back a lot, and in this process, I lost growth. The plant became much smaller than what it was before and took a while to bounce back. So now, push out a flower spike, and this flower spike push out these flowers, but I wasn't here to see them in full glory. So when I came back, the flowers have already opened and they were fading. Not only that, but I noticed with these plants as well that because the plant wasn't as healthy as it was before, the flowers were much smaller than before. When this plant is full of roots, full of growths, it is capable of pushing out a massive flower spike with massive red flowers, and it is a showstopper. Unfortunately, this time that's what I could capture in my camera, and that's what I was able to show you. But I'll be able to show this plant in the future. I'm so glad because I basically were able to rescue this plant and it survived. So let's go to the next one. I've spoken a lot about these Oncidium intergeneric before, or maybe it is an Oncidium, I'm not sure. This is the Oncidium Space Mine. or maybe Wilsonara Space Mind. I am not 100% sure. I found this plant locally in a garden center. I had a ton of issues with this plant. I've already told you a lot about it. I created a whole video about this beautiful Oncidium before. And I'm so glad that finally it decided to push out 4 different flower spikes. The flowers are much larger than when I got it from the garden center. They are super red and vibrant. And not only that, I have multiple directions of growth. So this plant bounced back beautifully, is doing amazingly well. And this plant push out smaller flowers compared to the previous intergeneric that I showed you. But I believe in the future it will be able to push out so many flowers and I will have an even better display. The fact that it's doing that well now, it makes me so super happy, and it's one of the highlights of this month for sure. I hope you enjoy red flowers as much as I do, and this one I offer the same care that I offer to my other Oncidium intergeneric. The only difference and the only specific thing about this intergeneric is the fact that attract pests like nothing, so similar to Miltoniopsis and Aleceara as well. Still talking about pink orchids, let's go for another orchid, and this one you have seen in my channel many times. This is my beautiful Cattleya Crystal Smith Nathan Reward. This is a very easy to grow Cattleya, adapt to many different type of environments. You can actually place it in a windowsill or maybe on your desk. And also, it needs the same type of light that I offer to my Phalaenopsis and Oncidiums. So, as I told you, is this kind of Cattleya that if you're struggling with Cattleyas, this one should be the plant for you, because not only super compact, but it can adapt to different environments, and also is much more adaptable to light conditions as well. Not only that, it's not a super thirsty orchid either, so you can give it just a little bit of water and absorb the roots, and then water it when they are completely dry. This plant will be super fine. The highlight of this orchid is definitely the color combo, is the contrast between the pink and the yellow lip. This time, when I was filming this plant, the second flower was a little bit distorted because it was growing very close to another orchid, so the flower didn't have space to fully open. So now what happened is, I place it with my other blooming orchid, and this flower is looking amazing, is looking great, but I couldn't film for you. I didn't have time for it, and now the flowers are fading. It's very normal for some orchids. When they get old, the flowers will fade in color, but for Cattleyas, this plant blooms for a long time. That's another highlight. I think it stays in bloom for at least a month, which is amazing for Cattleyas. I am super glad that this plant is doing well, is growing well, and I'll probably show this plant to you many more times because, as I told you, it's not only super easy to grow, but it blooms multiple times a year. Now we are going to a red Cattleya that I also showed you before. I don't know if it was in the last What's Blooming Inside My Indoor Garden or the previous video, but this one is my Cattliante Sagarik Walks African Beauty. So this plant was blooming, and I think before I went to Brazil in the beginning of July, it was blooming from a flower spike. But another growth pushed out another flower spike, and this time it had 2 flowers. When I filmed these flowers, the flowers were already fading. They were in bloom for the whole month of August, but I couldn't capture them on time, so they were not looking as vibrant and as amazing as my previous bloom. Nonetheless, I didn't want to skip this one because I think it's a beautiful Cattleya, different from the other one. The petals and sepals are very waxed and firm, and the plant is very tall as well. So this is not a compact Cattleya. It's a large and tall orchid that needs its space. On top of that, I placed this plant very close to my growing light, and it's doing okay. It blooms for me every year around August, so blooms only once a year, but when it blooms, it's always a massive surprise. I enjoy seeing these blooms very, very much because they are gorgeous. It's not the most difficult Cattleya to grow either. Actually, I've never had issues with this one. So it got attacked by thrips, but from the moment that I addressed the thrip issue, when this plant was much smaller than what it is right now, it decided to grow non-stop and to bloom yearly for me. It has no fragrance whatsoever. Oh, no, that's not actually true. Sorry, my memory is not working very well right now. Actually, this is a fragrant Cattleya. I don't remember the fragrance and I don't remember what. As you can see, fragrance is not my strong suit in here. I don't really remember it, but I'm sure I've spoken about it in the previous video, so you're gonna have to check that one. I love this plant for its color more than anything. I love red, I love tones of red, and this one looks like a glass of red wine, but actually it's a little bit more vibrant than that, and it is gorgeous, amazing. The flower is not as large as some other Cattleyas, but I think the fact that it has a different texture gives it a beautiful charm. Anyway, let's go to the next Cattleya. Now, I'm showing and presenting to you one of my favorite orchids. This is my RLC Toshie Aoki. This plant came from Brazil, and that is very dear for my heart. Not only that, but when I decided to buy this plant, it was because of the color combo. It's one of these fluffy Cattleyas, very typical Cattleya flowers. They are not only super elegant, but they have this wow factor. It's the contrasting color or tone of red, purple, and yellow. I love the way that petals and sepals will contrast in this plant, and also how this super frilly lip will have both colors as well. I think when I look from this plant from the distance, I don't know how to explain, but it's definitely amazing. It is a super tall Cattleya, very large orchid. It has beautiful blooms and it blooms once a year, every year for me. This is one of these Cattleyas that I don't know how to explain because again, it's the wow factor for me. The difference, this plant has the colorful vibe to it. The other ones that I showed you before, they were all one colored Cattleya or maybe something that was subtle. This one has the colorful vibe. When I look at these flowers, they are pretty strong, and that makes such a huge difference in here in this kind of arrangement. These plants will be in bloom for around 3 weeks, I would say, 2 to 3 weeks. And they are perfumey as well. They have one of these floral, strong fragrance that some Cattleyas have. It doesn't make me sick. It's not the best fragrance ever. What I love about this orchid, it's definitely the flowers and the colors. I don't know, these contrasts and the way that this flower, the lip will match the petals, and then you have the sepals contrasting with them just behind. It is truly amazing. I love this Cattleya very, very, very much. So again, for me, this is one of the highlights that I had this summer. Let's go to the next one. Now, for the wow factor, I present to you my pink No ID Cattleya. Why the wow factor? Because this Cattleya pushed out 24 buds for me. I counted today again before I recorded this video to make sure that I had the accurate number, and I'm super happy and proud of me and my care and also of my plant. This plant I bought on eBay, I think many years ago, is one of these No ID Cattleyas. It used to be much smaller. I remember when I presented to you the first time that I saw this plant in bloom, and I was really happy because it pushes out these fluffy, super large flowers. And I remember being very happy. And after that, this plant started to grow and never gave me headaches. Was always a very, say, healthy type of Cattleya, which was really, really cool. But I reported, I think in the beginning of the year, end of last year, I'm not sure anymore, I don't remember. And I decided not to divide this plant. I decided to keep it in this super large pot and enjoy the multiple directions of growth. This plant has many of those and keep it all together. As a result, since it was growing healthily, receiving plenty of super bright light, this plant needs super bright light. It's also being watered every time that it needs water and being fertilized. I have a huge display of pink flowers and I'm so incredibly happy. When I looked at it today, I was like, wow, I got it. It was so difficult to have Cattleyas to do well for me. And now not only I managed to have Cattleyas that are doing well, but I have this massive orchid display and it's so beautiful and it's so amazing to look at. This plant is also fragrant. It will have this floral type of fragrance. Nothing to write home about, but it's also fresh and elegant. I don't know how to explain, but yeah, it's just a simple pink and no ID Cattleya, but it has so many flowers that they are a little bit, I don't know how to explain, they're clustered. Yeah, they don't have even space because they're growing and they are coming from everywhere. I need to keep on top of this orchid now to make sure it has enough nutrients, is being fed regularly, and also being watered so it can recover, so it can keep growing. And maybe next year we're gonna have lots of flowers and lots of blooms again. Anyway, I don't expect to have more blooms than that. I think that's a lot. I wasn't expecting it, but I am incredibly happy. I hope you enjoy my beautiful floral display as well. And let's stop here. These were all the Cattleyas that I had for you. Let's go to the next orchid. So, from one pink orchid to another, here we have my beautiful Tolumnia orchid. This is one of these Jairak fern hybrids, and this orchid bloomed for me last year for the first time. And I remember that the flowers were very pale compared to what I saw online. However, this time the blooms are much more striking than before. The colors are super strong and is a very deep tone of pink. So what I think is happening here is not only that my plant has more energy, it's bushier than before, but more than that, it's also a different season. It's much warmer when this plant push out this flower spike than when it bloomed for the first time. I do believe temperature plays a huge role in how our plants bloom and rebloom, not only in terms of the size of the flowers, but also the color of these blooms. Talking about it, you probably know that I love Tolumnias. I think Tolumnias are great for indoor orchid growers. So if you live in a flat or if you live inside a home, you can definitely grow Tolumnias. They are tiny orchids, they are space savers. The only thing that you need to keep an eye on is in the root system. The roots are very thin, and the moment that your Tolumnia start to go downhill, it's very difficult to recruit them. But if they are healthy, if you are used to growing Oncidiums, for example, inside your home, I don't think you would have issues growing Tolumnias. They are gorgeous. They are super beautiful orchids. They do require bright light to be able to bloom and rebloom. And as you can see here, they have this cute display of flowers. And I think the flowers are quite large compared to the size of the orchid. Not only that, but the flowers are super gorgeous in terms of color and pattern. You can have yellow Tolumnias, red Tolumnias, in this case super dark pink Tolumnias, and they will push out a super big flower spike, as I said, compared to the size of the plant. And the good thing about it is that not only they can branch out and one flower spike can push out other flower spikes, but this one will rebloom for me. I can see it has a new flower spike coming through. We can compare the color since it's going to be cooler when this one decides to rebloom. Because I love Tolumnia so much, I can't wait to see this plant blooming and reblooming, but also see other Tolumnias in bloom. Anyway, this is the tiniest orchid, I guess, that I had in bloom this season. And not only that, at the moment, my only Tolumnia that is blooming and reblooming, if I could, I would have at least 20 Tolumnias all over. Could be a beautiful display. Maybe in the future, who knows? But at the moment, I'm really enjoying my pink flowers. I hope you do too. Let's go to the next orchid. I showed you my bee orchid in a previous video this month. This is my Coelogyne ovalis brown. And this is a species of Coelogyne. I've showed you in other videos. It's one of these orchids that will bloom and rebloom multiple times a year because this is a sequential bloomer, which means that when it's done with that flower, the spike will keep growing and will push out another bud that will then open into a new flower. The flowers are short-lived, but the fact that you have always a new bud coming after the flower means that you don't see the flower actually fading, because when it does, there is another flower opening already. The flower spikes are short and the plant will grow very wild in a horizontal way, so you need to have actually a wild pot. Ideally, I should have a larger pot than that. The plant is splitting out, is growing all over the place. It's quite difficult to display this plant because it will tend to climb very close to bulbophyllums as well. So instead of growing vertically, it will grow all over the place. However, it is not a tall plant, so it will grow only horizontally. It's very easy to fit with other orchids, short and small orchids as well. This one doesn't need super bright light. I place it in a shelving that has only Phalaenopsis, and it's the worst light that I have, and it's doing super well. It blooms all the time, growing new roots, new growths. It's blooming, so it's one of these plants that it's super easy for us to fit in our homes as well. It's not super popular because I know that the flowers are not super bright and colorful, but I like different orchids, so it's really nice to have this Coelogyne in my collection because it has this insect vibe and adds some complexity and some variety to my collection of plants. Anyway, let's go to the next orchid. So now, one of my favorite orchids as well. As you can see, this video is full of favorites, and I'm sorry, they are all together in this video because they bloomed almost at the same time. So that's life. But here I have my Prostechea vitellina, and I've showed you this plant so many times in the past month, so you're probably tired of hearing about it. But I will talk to you very briefly. That's not my first Prostechea vitellina. This is my second in this collection. The other one got destroyed. I don't know if it was insect or something happened to it. I don't remember. I know that when I lost it, I decided to buy another one because it is one of these orchids that I always want to have. This is a species of orchid that has a super bright strike orange. It's one of these, how I'm gonna say that, but it's a very warm and bright orange. So when you look at it, although the plant is not massive, even when I look to all the greens around me, I can always point where my Prostechea is because of the tone of the flowers. I think it reminds me of a bird. I don't know which bird, but it's like it has a beak and the wings. And not only that, it's capable of pushing out more than one flower spike as this plant mature and age. My other one, I think before it died, it had 3 or 4 flower spikes. At the moment, this plant is very young. It's the first time that it's blooming for me, and I'm really happy that it's doing well. With my Prostechea vitellina, I place it close to one of my window sills. It receives some indirect sunlight, and actually I water it with most of my orchids. Now that the temperature is a little bit cooler, doesn't need to be watered every week. I can skip 1 week because it will still be wet and I don't want to rot these roots. This plant not only have a beautiful flower display, but also has some gray leaves. So the leaves are a little bit different from other orchids and has this grayish tint to it. It has no fragrance whatsoever, but the color is definitely, but it's worth having it because of the flowers. Now let's go to my next plant. Again, a super wild orchid here. I have my beautiful Bulbophyllum Fascinator. I think that's the correct tag. It was sold to me with a different name that was definitely incorrect. So this Bulbophyllum is the only Bulbophyllum that is actually blooming and reblooming in my collection. I got at least one right. So I guess this one is probably easier than the others to bloom. It is growing under intermediate light, not a super bright light, just some intermediate light, and is doing okay. Bulbophyllums also grow horizontally, so you need a shallow and long pot to place them if you're not growing them bare-rooted. They tend to split out of the pot because they will grow towards different directions and they start to become a very large orchid. Not only that, but the thing about Bulbophyllum is that the flowers unfortunately are short-lived. They are super cute. I love the fact that it has this different lip. And also when you come very close to the flower, for me, it reminds me a little bit of one of these sleeper orchids. It's like the miniature, the central part of it is like a sleeper orchid. And then it has something else coming from behind. That's how I see it, sorry. Although it's not super bright and colorful, all of these strange and different weird type of flower, for me, gives me the wow factor for my Bulbophyllum. It is definitely amazing, wild, and different from other orchids that I have in my collection, and I really appreciate it for it because I finally have a Bulbophyllum that is doing well, and it's definitely making me feel super good about it. What do you think actually about this type of orchids? I would love to hear. I can only say that I'm enjoying it very much and I have to enjoy it because these flowers will probably fade in 2 weeks. Before I go to my Phalaenopsis orchids, they are the last ones for this video. I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel. It does help me a lot. Like this video if you're enjoying it so far. Leave a comment letting me know which one of these is your favorite orchid. I would love to hear. And something else is that you can also become a member of this channel. And if you want to support me even further, there are some products that I designed myself on the store that is linked here to YouTube. Without further ado, let's go to the Phalaenopsis orchids. So this one I showed you probably 2 months ago. It is my Phalaenopsis Purple Martin Variety Blue. This Phalaenopsis is one of these sequential bloomers that's capable of blooming non-stop for many months in a row. When I showed you last time, I don't think the flower display was amazing. The plant was a bit weak for some reason, but it's doing much better now. And you can see the difference between the older flowers and the newest flowers, how the color faded. And when the flower is very young, it's super dark in terms of the purple tone, and then starts to get more like a, let's say, a lavender tone of purple, and until it becomes almost white and fade. When these flowers are fading, you have as well other flowers and other buds coming through. As you can see with this super long flower spike, I had so many flowers fading in the past, and I still have buds coming through towards the end of the spike because this is a sequential bloomer. And because I have one bloom coming while the other ones are fading, and the flower spike keep growing and growing until it stopped growing at some point, I have these Phalaenopsis in bloom for many months. It's not that the flowers will last for 3 months, but the spike will keep growing and pushing out more flowers while the older flowers will fade. It is a super nice hybrid to have in any collection, super easy to look after, like most of our Phalaenopsis. So I super recommend this hybrid, and I love that also the petals and sepals in this plant, they tend to turn to the back a little bit. So again, looks like it has wings, and I love it. So let's go to the next Phalaenopsis. Funny enough, you're gonna see lots of Phalaenopsis here that you've seen before. It's the same thing with this Phalaenopsis No ID. This one is one of these super large Phalaenopsis that we find locally in garden centers, flower shops and supermarkets. I didn't have any big Phalaenopsis in my collection until last year when someone gifted this to me. I think it was a birthday gift. And since then, I grew attached to this plant. It was quite small actually, although it came in bloom. Now it's growing and I am sure that it will become a massive plant in the future and I might regret having it in my collection. But at the moment, I'm super happy. The thing is, it bloomed for me, I think, maybe March, April, I don't remember exactly. And now that the weather is getting a bit cooler, this plant already understood that it was time to rebloom. I don't have a super warm summer and it's not always hot in here. So my Phalaenopsis are growing all the time and sometimes pushing flower spikes completely out of season, or at least out of the season that I have in here. But for them, it's cold enough. That being said, that's the second time that this plant is blooming this year. I didn't expect it to happen, but it did happen. The plant is super healthy, it's growing super nicely. And I honestly love this flower spike. Maybe it is because I don't have any other plant that is like this one in my collection. And it's definitely the larger Phalaenopsis as well. So when I look at my windowsill and I see these super large pink flowers, it always makes me smile. So I'm super happy to have it in my collection. Let's go to the next Phalaenopsis. This one is another No ID, and I've shown you this plant before. This is the Phalaenopsis that I told you that almost died with root rot, and then I was able to recover it. However, this plant had many beautiful flowers a couple of months ago, or maybe 2 months ago, and I didn't expect it to bloom again, and suddenly push out another flower at the top of the spike, like a sequential bloomer. And now this flower is there for a while, and I can see that I have other buds actually waiting to grow and to bloom. So I discovered that this plant is also a sequential bloomer. That's something that I didn't know about it. I have no idea about the idea of this Phalaenopsis. The only thing that I know is that it has very sturdy leaves, but very similar to any Phalaenopsis in my collection. And the flower is very waxy. So it has waxy petals and sepals and a very strong tone of red, slightly purplish. But it's like a dark. It's one of these type of, I don't know. It's more red than purple, but when I film it, it translates to purple for some reason. But when I look at the flowers, they are definitely red to my eyes. But looking here and watching the video now, I can see something closer to purple. Nonetheless, as I told you, it's a joy to grow this plant. I found it in a garden center here in the UK, and I'm really glad that I did. I have no idea about the name of this plant, but it's a joy to grow. Here I have the tiniest Phalaenopsis flowers in my collection, and this one is my Phalaenopsis equestris variety peloric. Actually, it's a peloric equestris. I don't have the equestris in my collection, the species, apart from this peloric one. This one was maybe a cakey or very small, not very small actually, it was a mature plant someone was selling on eBay. I bought it. It was doing super nice. It bloomed for me before. And the flower spike decided to push out 2 cakeys. This is also a sequential bloomer. So it pushed out 2 cakeys. I bought the 2 cakes separately. I decided to keep both of them because I was worried about the mother plant. It has never bloomed for me again. It only pushed out these cakeys and that was it. The mother plant is healthy. It's not blooming. But the cakey decided to bloom this year. Although the flower spike is too small, but these flowers, when we look up close, they are really cute. They look like they were maybe drawn by hand. Nature is incredible, isn't it? Look at the pattern of these flowers. They are very different. I know that they're trying to mimic the lip on the petals, which is really, really cute. But when I look at it, I can see different shapes and with different contrasts of color. I don't know. I think it's super, super cute. The only thing is that these flowers are tiny, and this plant will become a large, super large and big Phalaenopsis, but the flowers will be always super, super, super tiny. With the mother plant, I didn't have an experience of having plenty of spikes full of blooms. It was only a sequential bloomer and was pushing small flowers from time to time. Let's see how these cakes will do. I definitely keep you posted, but the only thing that I can say is that I love these miniatures. They are cute, very, very cute. Now, the last but not least, I will close this video with my Phalaenopsis bellina. I've shown you this one when it was July, I guess, before I went to Brazil. This plant had only one flower, I believe, when I showed you last time. I wasn't very happy with the display. What happened with my bellina is that it's becoming a monster. It's a super large plant. It has a ton of roots that are growing everywhere. But I lost some of the spikes. I think I need to repot it. But I was really happy when I came back from Brazil and I noticed that it had all of the 3 spikes and all of them were growing nicely and blooming as well. So I decided to show you again this plant with the 3 flower spikes, and all of them have 1 flower. And these flowers, they are not super large compared to the size of the orchid. They are short flower spikes, so very different from some of the hybrids of Phalaenopsis that we find locally. Nonetheless, they smell so good. One of the, I think, the highlights of the Phalaenopsis bellina is definitely the fragrance. It's fruity, and it's not fruity that makes you sick. It's a fruity, floral, subtle fragrance that is so nice to be around. They should create a perfume with it, or they should try to mimic it somehow, because it's really, really good. It's like mouth-watering type of fragrance. So my bellina now has these 3 flower spikes, and they will bloom again because some of them have buds, as you can see here, which makes me so, so happy. I will still have my bellina in bloom probably around this month, maybe beginning of November. They will be completely gone, which is normal. Bellinas usually bloom when you have warm weather, so that happens with a lot of polychilous type of orchids. They need warm temperature to be able to bloom and rebloom. When the temperature drops a lot around here, they tend to stop blooming to focus their energy on growing new leaves, new roots, which is fine for me. That's when the other type of Phalaenopsis, like my Schilleriana, will be able to bloom again. But since I still have it in bloom, and it's blooming nicely than before, I want to show you this plant. I need to repot it maybe in the beginning of next year, and when I do it, I'll definitely show you. But that concludes my video. I hope you enjoy traveling with me through the world of orchids. And if you enjoyed this type of video, please hit the like button, leave a comment down below, and I hope to see you next time. Bye bye! Thank you.